Back at you again, my friends. Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon. I am State Senator James Sanders Jr., and you have reached the show of shows. My friends, in the world around us, we live where people are giving fuzzy questions and fuzzy answers. You can't get a straight answer if you ask a pointed question. People seem to equivocate over the smallest, and we're going to cut through that. In this program, we put a high premium on clarity. In fact, the show is called Let's Be Clear. And today we are going to have a conversation on a subject that there has been a lot of smoke about. There has been a lot of, you can't get an enlightened conversation here, but you can get in rooms filled with billowy clouds of smoke. Yes, my friends, I'm talking about the legalization of cannabis in New York State. And we're going to speak of many different things, including what are we locally going to do about it? And I have three of the best people of money cannot buy to help me out on this issue. I have the Brandon Jeffries, who is returning to the show. Yes, he is now an alumni. He has survived one round with me, and he believes he can go more. Good for him. We'll see at the end of this one. And of course, Mr. Lideker, whose name I had it too, my friend. I worked at it. Oh, I should have stayed awake in more classes, I tell you. Brian is going to help it. Brian runs the membership relations manager at the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce. I need him to tell me, is there a market? Is there a possibility of cannabis? Are there businesses? Are there opportunities? If there are, where might they be? Because Kevin Green is coming in. Kevin Green. I wonder. Some people are tracked into what they do with their life from birth. Kevin Green is coming in, and he is going to, in fact, he is the vice president of the Cleveland School of Cannabis. That, Brother Green, that has been the butt of how many jokes, and you should give me the best ones. So on another day, I'll have some good jokes, and so I'll spare them today since I don't have any good ones. But he is the vice president of Cleveland School of Cannabis, and my friends, I got news for you. That's no laughing matter. Maybe it was at one point, but Kevin would tell you how to laugh all the way to the bank. So we will bring him in, and he will speak of what is the Cleveland School of Cannabis, because we have just announced, well, I'm cheating. I don't want to cheat. I want to speak of cannabis. As it is well known, after several years of battle, the New York State legislature and the governor have, the former governor at least, has signed and the legalization of recreational use marijuana. Let me put that in there, my friend. There was medical use marijuana, but this is recreational use. Marijuana is coming to New York State. Now, we're working on the fine details, how far from schools, how far from churches. We're working on a lot of details, but the detail that should interest you the most is who will get the contracts. And we will speak to that. But first things first, we have to find out, is there a need for this business? And I'm going to first take it from the view of the workers. Do we have workers? Get ready, Mr. Jeffries. I'm coming your way. Are there workers is there anyone interested in working in this area? Now, Brandon Jeffries, you are the director of youth programs for the Queens Offenders. And if anybody can tell us what's going on in the minds of youth, perhaps it is you. Would you be kind enough to speak first on what is the Queens Defenders, and And then you can go directly into the question of, can we figure a workforce?
Absolutely, and thank you, Senator, for the opportunity. I'd like to just share that Queens Defenders is a public defense firm that also has an outreach division. That outreach division is comprised of social services as well as legal consultation, immigration services, housing services, and even assisting in job assistance. To that end, when you're talking about is there a market, or are there individuals that are interested in and willing to work, that is a resounding yes on our end. From the boots on the ground, Senator, to what you see on TV, what you see on the internet, this is something that not only young adults, but adults. I support the adult services in Queens Offenders, and there are a number of job agencies that are looking for the kids. I shouldn't say kids, the adults, the young adults, and the young adults are trying to find out how they can get active. And to that end, with every new job, there are new skills. There's a new criteria, and it falls on Queens Offenders and other agencies to make sure that they can fit the criteria so they can get the job.
Well, this program that was created also has to do with a social justice aspect. Uh, would you speak to that?
Gladly. This is something that is layered with certain nuances of pain and some might say retribution and even a point of realization for our society today, where we are realizing that this is something that needed to be legalized. This is something that needed to be more a part of the fabric of our society, so that people can be able to not only have a medicinal sense of well-being, but there could also be a recreational done when done in moderation. And there needs to be a business component for this. There have been far too many individuals that have been at the tail end of some very negative pitfalls for something that we are now looking at from a new perspective. And unfortunately, there were people that were the product of this type of pitfall. But I hope, and with the distinguished gentlemen as well as yourself, Senator, we can talk more about how those that might have been hurt by this, we can turn this into something that can be productive, a shining light, if I may be so bold.
Well, I'm going to show you the clarity that I'm looking for. I'm going to speak as clear as we can. This so-called war on drugs that was fought quickly became a war on the poor and targeted the least able to defend themselves and incarcerated them in incredible numbers. And most of these people were Black men, young men, and they were incarcerated in incredible numbers. To undo that somewhat, this legalization of cannabis, we don't call it marijuana anymore, don't ask me why. This legalization of cannabis has put a special premium on if those young men, or maybe not so young anymore, step forward and show that they have been hurt by the war on drugs, they may be eligible for grants to help them create a business. I trust that you're aware of that. All
Yes, I
right.
am. Yes, I am, and also actively working to create awareness, because once things can go through the policy and having pioneers like yourself, Senator, to ensure that this can be established, once that happens, it could fall on deaf ears if we're not there in the front lines, shouting and recruiting and letting them understand and helping them out with the paperwork, with the documentation. We don't want, just somebody failing to add something onto a paperwork on an application and they don't receive this type of equitable return for something that has been hurting so many people for so long.
Well, okay, so you're saying that there is a possibility of a workforce out there, but that's only part of the equation. Uh, Brian, you get ready. I'm aiming at you. That's only part of the equation. The other part of the equation is, are there employers who are willing to get into the ring here, especially with the understanding that it is still forbidden at the federal level? Are there any employers? Are there any uh, chamber of commerce groups or employers who are interested in how New York State rolls out uh, cannabis? And again, we will hear from the Brian relationship. Oh my, let's try it again. From Brian, from member relations manager. And Brian, I was giving you your own company with just you, man, and believe me, it should have a full-time staff there, but I suspect it will be you. Now, Brian is from the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce. Brian, welcome to the show. Uh, what is the business community saying about this rollout of cannabis?
So first off, Senator, I wouldn't even correct you if you pronounce my name wrong anyway. So don't even worry about it. Just to piggyback real quick on what Brandon was saying, and I do agree. Getting the workforce, the young adult workforce, is vital to the future of this economy being in the hands of the right people. If we don't get the young entrepreneurs involved, we're going to be missing out on the businesses later on. Right now, what you're seeing is that everyone's sitting on the cusp of the cannabis sector. I've been participating for the last 2 years in the Cannabis Insider series for New Jersey and for New York. That's actually run through Advanced Local. We did virtual events. We've done in-person events. Usually there's no less than a few hundred people who are all interested in finding out how can their business that currently exists partake in the direct services or the ancillary businesses inside of the cannabis sector, or, which is actually my favorite part, all of the people who live in low to moderate income areas who are attending these events to find out, how can I start a business that can be part of this? I think one of the things that we have to be very clear about is, do we want to create a new ecosystem of workforce, or do we want to create a new system of entrepreneurs, people that own the business in this industry? And I'll tell you, for the young adults that I work with, I don't want them to be truck drivers. I don't want them to be packagers. I want them to own the packaging plant. I want them to own the trucking and logistics company. And I think that on a whole, we are seeing businesses that are interested. There are so many different fields that go in this. We all know that New York is not the best place to live in the winter. So we're not going to be growing this outside. We're going to be growing this indoors, which means that we have to educate our young adults into hydroponics. We have to get them like-minded in other areas of science. Edibles is a huge growing sector. And we're dealing with businesses that are hiring people from the likes of MIT to talk about how to infuse food with chemistry that I can't even understand. So yes, there are a lot of businesses, from marketing companies to lawyers and accountants, that want to get involved. But we have to be investing in our community. We have to make sure that the people who live in that community right now, not the people who are going to open up stores in that community so that they could qualify for what some of these restrictions say. The people who live in that community need to be able to open a business that could be able to participate somewhere along this supply chain. And we do have a lot of businesses that are all looking to get in. As I said, most of the events I attend, 400 plus businesses in New York, New Jersey. We have a lot of businesses in New Jersey that are eyeing New York. They're thinking about, they're going to get a 1-year start on us. So when they get a 1-year start, how can they expand into Staten Island, which is the closest borough to the city? And if they're in Linden, Newark, or any of these other areas right over the bridge, they're going to have experience. So when it comes time for the permits, they're going to have the seed money, $10,000 just to apply, whether you get the business or not. So we do have to be giving the right tools to our young adults and to the people that live in the community so that they could partake in this industry.
Very interesting. Why is it important that local people participate? The laws of capitalism say anybody can participate. Why is it important for local people to participate?
So I think it's a great question. And I think when we talk about any business, the reason that businesses do well is because they have a relationship with their customers. Who am I to open up a business on the North Shore of Staten Island where I don't live, where I have no family, where I have no relationships? Somebody who lives in that neighborhood, who knows people in that neighborhood, they should be the ones that are opening up the businesses in that neighborhood. Why are we going to be giving money to companies that aren't even from New York City to open up businesses in New York City? Because they have experience in the cannabis sector? We can teach people how to do this. I mean, there's no difference with any other business. We need to keep this local. We need to make sure that the people who have historically been marginalized by this are the ones that are going to be able to be at the front lines to get their businesses up and running. We can talk about this later on, but I have to be very honest. In the beginning, in the first 3 years of this sector, if you're not in, you're out. That's how it's going to be. So we need to make sure that we're ramping up the work that we're doing with our young adults, the work that we're doing in our low to moderate income areas, that we're giving them the support structure so that they could actually own their business, or even a co-op where a number of them can group together and own the business. But it has to be local.
Well, I kind of feel that you're right about this 3-year business. I think that 3 years may be a little optimistic. If you are not in it at the beginning, you may be, who was that? Was it Elizabeth Warren that said that if you don't know what's being served for dinner, it's because you're on the, how did she say it? You are the dinner. Now, to keep us from being just food, Brother Kevin, what do people need to understand if they were going to compete and get into business? But first, I need you to tell the audience who you are and what you're about. And then I want you to explain why a person should go to school. Imagine I saying, look, I went to the School of Hard Knocks. I had my back streets. I had 12 streets answering to me. And they were main streets, and we did quite all right. I don't need any training from you guys. I can run my multi-state operation quite well. Thank you.
100%. And Senator James Sanders, I appreciate so much being a part of this conversation today. So the first thing, my name is Kevin Green, the Vice President of the Cleveland School of Cannabis, which is a workforce development career school focused on cannabis education. Where our goal is to develop the new and expanding workforce in the cannabis industry in itself. Why Cleveland? As you said, is when we thought about the opportunity of what was happening Midwest to East Coast, and 5 years ago, we saw that there was a great opportunity to be centralizedly based in a unique position as cannabis decided to go Midwest and come East. And also, when we think about the history of Cleveland, having one of the largest Black populations historically in the country, also having history in the sense of manufacturing and logistics, leaders in logistics. That's why most of our things were built in the Midwest and still are to this day. When we thought about that, and then we think about the disenfranchisement that has happened to the community of Cleveland, and especially cities like East Cleveland that are still struggling to today, we thought no better place than to be in Cleveland and set a new standard and a new opportunity, a new industry where we can uplift not only the local community, but put Cleveland in a situation where they can be leaders in an industry that's creating so much opportunity for everyone. Why education? Education builds nations. That's what we say. The reason is, if we think about any of our advancement in our world, it's all been on scientific advancement, understanding technology, and being able to educate the masses of our workforce so they could go ahead and we could do it at the best way possible, right? And be innovative in what we do. If we think about what we've known for in the past was manufacturing, our innovation in manufacturing and being able to ramp up things. Now we're really known for what goes on in Silicon Valley, right? Again, that comes down to quality education is needed for us individuals to be able to do these things. Cannabis is that next industry, right? It's going to build some of our best things together, right? It's going to have a component of agriculture, which we've been known for in the sense of the advancement of agriculture and impacted the world globally. It's going to have an option of manufacturing, have that great customer service, frontline consumer product when we're thinking about our dispensaries. And that is the intersection of where our consumers and our product actually meets. Education is key for that entire supply chain to be effective, but also it's key for us to be able to find the opportunities of where do we find ourselves in that supply chain. That's the great thing that I love about the cannabis industry. And the reason why we don't say marijuana is because we've moved on in the sense of understand scientifically that cannabis and marijuana is way bigger and way more complex than we ever thought. So what I would say to that individual that has been successful in the illegal cannabis market is to say you have the foundation of understanding how to run an organization at a high level. Now what we need to do is we need to translate those skills into the now new green market of the cannabis industry and how this is going to work in the sense of how things are now, because things have advanced, things have moved forward. There's new technologies and processes, tracking, and all these things that go on. But also we must never understand whether this is adult use or this is medical. This is a medical grade product, and is it important that not only the individuals that are working in the industry understand what we're dealing with, but this product from a medical product is going to give opportunity to consumers and patients for the first time to actually know more about the medicine that they're actually taking and using in their wellness toolkit. Because of the lack of education in the cannabis industry, so many people are intrigued. And when Brian touched on the fact that the edible market is growing, the reason why the edible market is growing, because we've finally learned that there's so many other ways to interact with cannabis. But also, when we think about ingestibles as a whole, it gives us the opportunity to be able to isolate cannabinoids, pair them together with other delivery agents to get a better effect for ultimately what patients are looking for. So if we think about this ecosystem that we're looking to create, education is at the core of that. There's no way that we can move along. And then when I think about individuals like yourself that have governance over our constituents and have power in the sense of where our industry moves in rooms that the rest of us will not be, it is important that you're not only educated in the sense of what cannabis is, but also educated to a point that we can start to combat the biases that have been instilled in individuals that are the stakeholders and are currently the elected officials because of the propaganda and the miseducation over the last 80 to 100 years around cannabis. So not only do we have to educate people, we have to re-educate a lot of individuals as well, all through our supply chain. And that's why education is the key to this process.
It is needed, but you did not really address my angle. I'm talking about a local street corner pharmacist who feels that he's doing quite well, and indeed, from a material point of view, may be doing well. Why should they, A, leave a life of crime, and B, take a class?
So the first thing is this. I don't think anyone, and coming from a family of individuals in the street that are in the ground, deported, and behind bars to this day, there's not one individual in my family member that wanted to be in a illicit market. They did what they had to do to feed their family. And when you come from disenfranchised communities and you're in crisis, you'll do a lot of things that you won't do when you're not in crisis, right? So understand that a lot of individuals in that community have normalized crisis is the first thing that we need to come to a realization of, right? Normalizing that lifestyle is not conducive to being able to move your family forward, which is what every person doing what they can do to feed their family is trying to do. The second thing is that your consumers should have now a higher expectation. Just a few years ago, you could just go to anyone and say, hey, I'm just looking for something good. Individuals are looking for specific cultivars, terpene profiles. They're looking for different ways to be able to interact with cannabis. So for you to be able to feed the marketplace, because the marketplace has now evolved, it is time for you to evolve. Every business has to evolve to be able to stay relevant, right? If we think about the technology boom, if you did not move with the pace of technology, you fell behind. So understanding that cannabis is on that same track of evolving very fast, we have to making sure that all individuals understand there's a new level of continuous education. When we talk about being lifelong learners, continuous education is key to be able to move with an advancing world. And cannabis is now on that track with the path of legalization. So what I say to them is this: your goal is never to be in the illegal market your entire life. Your goal is to create an opportunity for yourself using the skill sets that you have. Let's not normalize living in crisis. Now let's make sure we normalize continuing your education, being a lifelong learner, evolving your business, and evolving with your clientele that you've already proven that you can serve, and go ahead and be able to transition yourself, but now make something that could be generationally wealthy for your family, because you can't pass blocks on, but you can pass LLCs down. And that's what we need to make sure that we do.
Well, Brandon, Kevin makes some interesting points, but would they sell with the youth that you know? Would any of those youth be interested in this program based on what you just heard?
I'll tell you one thing. That last line that you said, Mr. Green, bars. Well said. You cannot pass blocks down, and you can pass LLCs. And that's the type of real conversation that needs to be had with the young adults. We need to acknowledge that what they're doing, why they're doing it from a non-judgmental method, but then we have to provide that alternative that's alluring. You know, Senator, you and I both know that there are a lot of great information that you can find in the book, but half the battle is making that book entertaining.
Mm.
When they read the first couple of pages, is it going to be a page turner, or are you going to say on to the next one? And same thing with TV, and same thing with social media platforms, and the same thing with new burgeoning businesses. And this is where we have to be able to find and highlight those type of thought processes. Yes, how much are you making right now? Did you know you can make that much and more the legal way? Do you know that you can also start to have health care? Because some of our young adults and adults have kids or want to provide for their family. And another, we need to meet them from an angle to make their life worthwhile, because that is possibly the reason why they are in this natural form of crisis that Mr. Green alluded to.
Well, Brian, did any of this get you? I mean, you heard some great salespeople, but what did you buy it?
I mean, what we're talking about here is going to be in the first year alone a $26 billion industry in New York. $1 billion. You know, we're not talking about somebody who's making a couple $100 here and there. We're talking about the idea that you can grow an empire. And that's, you know, that's something that's very attractive when you talk to other people about it. And I do love it the way that, you know, Mr. Green had put it. It is something that when we talk about why do I need to get out? When we talk to the young adults about this, they live in the here and now. We have to talk to them about where you're going to be in 20 years. You want to be set for life? You can get into this industry now. We're talking about a market that is expanding. The cannabis industry has been the largest growing industry of any other industry. Okay, over the last 7 years, combine the three industries underneath it, it still dwarfs them, and it's just growing. So we're talking about, you know, hundreds and hundreds of businesses in each of the 5 boroughs, not to mention upstate and everything else. There are a lot of requirements. I'm working right now with some young adults who are trying to expunge their records, you know, but it all depends on what exact area you want to go in. And, you know, I love what Cleveland is doing. I've been following some of the local universities, and they're not doing it at this level. You know, part of it is too, because some of the federal funding that comes in, we can't actually do some of the training that we need to do because the funding doesn't allow it, because it's still illegal at the federal level. So we need to find what are the jobs that our young adults can get into. We need people that are working with young adults to get them their driver's license as soon as possible so that they can actually get their CDL license. They need 3 years of a clean driving record. That means that if I meet them when they're 25, it's too late. By 18, get a driver's license. If you don't need a car, you don't need a car. But by the time you're 21, you have 3 years of a clean record. That's what we're going for. We need them to get these things in order so that if they wanted to own their own trucking company, they would be able to. I think these are huge. When we start to talk about, you know, creating a business, we don't need any more pizza parlors. We don't need any more restaurants. We need new businesses and new ideas. And you know, Mr. Green had pointed out, and he's 100% right. When we're talking about these new industries, you know, watching some of these cooking shows that are infusing cannabis, or all of these brands that came out like Zombie Skittles, you know, and these other knockoff brands, they're coming up with unique ways. And we're not even getting into the hemp products, the other legalized things. There are so many business models that are out there. And I'm seeing every day, I get outreach from businesses. I'm going to say businesses because they're not legitimate businesses, but people who are asking, I've been doing this for years. How do I get my business legitimate. And this isn't just in New York. I get inquiries from other parts. I get people who send me things on Instagram because they see the things that I'm posting and they're asking, I see what other people are making. How do I get out of what I'm doing so that I can be around? So the market is there. I kind of feel that if we don't help push our young adults into it, if we don't help our community members get access to the money that they need, we're going to see people that come from other areas and set up shop. And what we'll be complaining about for the next 50 years is how we missed the boat yet again.
Senator, if I can just
By all means, sir.
share, you know, something that Mr. Licata said earlier really rang true, which was, you know, we're not looking for them to have low-level positions. And that's really where you're going to get the young adults involved. They want to be bosses. They want to own their own market, and they want to be in the forefronts. They're not looking to just punch in, punch out. So this is really where, you know, you couple that with the teachings that Mr. Green's school is bringing to the table. This allows them to have that toolkit to do so.
Agreed.
Now, Mr. Green, let's go a step further. Let me teach you a little something from this world of journalism. In journalism, there's a saying that you have to leave New York to get to New York. And indeed, that's what you're recommending. All right, now what does that mean? In journalism, a student goes to J school and they learn all kinds of great stuff. They don't, unless you are incredible, you don't start out at the New York Times. You've got to go way to Des Moines, Iowa, wherever the job is, and you've got to learn and really brush up on your skills. So, and you are working your way to big city. And you know, you may have a stint in Philadelphia, in Detroit, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, you hope to make it big in New York City. So you have to leave New York to get to New York. Now you put a new spin on this one, sir. You're saying that to get the skills that we need, we have to leave New York and indeed import them, but you are giving the opportunity that a person does not have to go to lovely downtown Des Moines, Iowa in the winter to learn these things. And if you know anything about Des Moines, Iowa in the winter, you know it is a great place not to be. So how did Cleveland beat out the Empire State? How did Cleveland beat out the Big Apple? Why isn't it the New York School of Cannabis? How the heck did you guys get there first?
Well, I guess the first thing to say, maybe I did leave. I grew up 10 minutes from the George Washington Bridge on the New Jersey side. So I grew up in the tri-state area my entire life.
Jersey,
so,
side
you know
of the
what I mean?
cross.
You know,
You said Jersey, that's a bad word.
when I came to this country from Jamaica, you know, of all Jamaicans do, you know, we go to Flatbush first. I grew up on Cortelli Road in Flatbush. So so I still got some New York roots, not too far from Queens, you know, so you know, understanding that, truthfully, as I said before, in the sense of where we started, it's not the, you know, we've been looking at what's been going on with the growth of cannabis, right? Through the states, right? Every state, and we're really looking at what state rights look like, right? Because every state is very different in the sense of how they're coordinating and actualizing their industry and how fast they want to go, et cetera. A clear way of looking at it is really every medical market has different qualifying conditions, right? At the end of the day, which is something you don't really see when you're thinking about medical side stuff, right? Normally, if I can get this prescription here, I can get it here, and I can get it at the same CVS, right? I can go to CVS anywhere in the country and get the same prescription. So understanding that, noticing what was going on, the differences, you know, we picked a central location for, in the sense of what we thought was coming east. But what I say to New Yorkers, and what I say to people that are really looking at this cannabis industry as an opportunity, is that this is the first opportunity that we're clearly seeing, if we do it right, as Brian said and Brandon said, that it allows homegrown individuals from your own community to be stakeholders and shareholders. The fact that we have technology and we are able to go ahead and provide education from anywhere in the world and make it convenient for the fast-paced world and the busy 3 jobs, the side hustle, the kids, the family, and just trying to catch some time for some sanity, understanding that we have to be adaptable to the current work-life balance that individuals have right now, you're able to access this education. And that's what we wanted to make sure that we provided that. Because if we think about equity, equity is so much more and transcends so much more than race. Because when we think about equity, it's really making sure that we look at individuals that have been put to the side and disenfranchised in any way. And then how do we create systems to aid them through their process and meet them where they are to get them to success? Not providing a blanket approach that's going to go for them. And that's what we've done in our program in education sense of how do we create different approaches and different opportunities to meet people where they are and being able to take them. There's nothing better than seeing a classroom full of individuals from 18 to, as Brandon said, 70 years old. This is not a young person's game. We're seeing people that are finishing off their race saying, hey, I started this race, young buck. I started this race, and at the end of the day, and I get to be at the finish line to finish my race that I started 40 years ago. There's nothing more great than that. And then seeing young people being inspired by those individuals, there's not a much opportunity where we have this type of intergenerational communication and mentorship to happen. It does not happen because I've been to college and seen all the people there like, oh, what's this guy and girl still doing here on campus, things of that sort, right? This is an opportunity for individuals to be able to go ahead and do this at home, be in their community, go ahead and be authentic, and then also be able to create intergenerational wealth for them right at home. The one thing that we must not let happen in the cannabis industry is to allow implants to come in from no matter where they're coming and making sure that individuals that are not from New York taking advantage of majority of the opportunities that are available. Because if we do that, we're setting up for consolidation that will be done in the cannabis industry regardless, right? But it would be done without the stakeholders of New York, the residents of New York, get it to make the decision if they want to be a part of that consolidation or not. And that's the one thing that we have to be very, very mindful. It's happening in cannabis already. The MSOs, the multi-state operators, are buying licenses every single place. They're not going for a lot of new awards. They're buying the licenses from individuals. And we want to make sure that New York residents are able to take advantage of that sell or that hold if they choose to, and not be forced into truthfully the consolidation of organizations that will own the cannabis industry. So we need to do this here. We need to do it at home. We need to put the great minds and the individuals with the lived experiences to be the lead of this. So that's the way that we do it, is to making sure that we connect with individuals on the boots ground. Because again, growing up in that area doesn't mean that I've been there still now and dealing with the issues now. And that's what the main thing that we're focused on is how do we partner with individuals in that community to making sure that this is an authentic approach and sense to how we do what we do.
I am reminded, Mr. Green, of a saying that came out of the struggles in New Orleans, where some of the leaders, they saw other people coming in to help change and help build New Orleans, and they were pushing out the local person. And they came up with a saying that said, if it's about us, without us, it's not for us. If it's about us, without us, it's not for us. And it sounds like this may be a similar thing that as well-meaning as some people may be, if the local people are not involved in this, it won't work. Now, Mr. Licata, are there opportunities? Suppose I am that street corner pharmacist that I just spoke of, and I have not been convicted or whatever, but I have enough sense that I want to go legit. Is there any interest in the business class of partnerships? Is anybody interested in doing partnerships?
So what you're starting to see is people are realizing that there's going to be a limited number of licenses for each of these subsets, for the growers, the distributors, the processors, the dispensaries. So people are trying to come together and raise funds, crowdsource. There are partnerships. The big difference is educating people with the correct way to open a business in this industry. There are things that people aren't thinking about. They're trying to get a jump start and they're starting an LLC and they're putting, 420 in the name, or they're putting, weed or something else in the name, automatically limits them. They can't have that business in the cannabis industry. So it's a heavily moderated industry. When we look at partners, you have to vet all of your partners. If we're talking about someone who wanted to get a few people together, form a corporation, all of them need to follow the same rules. If they need to get their license expunged, they need to get their license expunged. If we're talking about people that are not going to be able to partake in this industry, you have to be very careful about who your partners are. That's why I think it's so important that, especially at the downstate level, New York City, that from SBS or from another entity, we need education related to this. There are a lot of people who provide free services. If you're from Brooklyn, Black women of color in cannabis is a fantastic group to connect with. And they're holding like weekly classes and they're trying to talk to people about this industry. But yes, I do feel that the approach that we're going to see is people are going to figure out how do they get a few people together and stick money in and form some sort of partnership so that they can get into this industry.
Very interesting. Brandon, based on what you just heard, what will you speak to young people who say that they have an interest in this? What new information can you share with them?
Senator, it's always important when you're talking to the youth to know who the plug is, and that's what the youth want to hear. They don't want, the talking head that's going to share how important this is, or this is why you need, what's the plug? And that's why the minute, Mr. Licata mentioned Black women of color in cannabis, I wrote it down. Because the minute I'm talking to them, and if there's a young lady that wants to get involved and is looking to figure it out, I'm like, who you need to talk to? And I'm going to speak to somebody from there. I'm like, you need to speak to this woman, and she's involved in this group. They're going to be able to help you. The youth, they're very savvy. And I think that their moves are so purpose-driven that nothing else matters, and people just think that they're indifferent. When in fact, they might have had a goal already that they set their sights on. So you have to find out and target what their goal is, and then help them by finding the plug to help them achieve their goal. Because the minute they realize it, their eyes perk up. There's a different type of a bop in their step. There's a different type of swag, to be able to say that there's a Cleveland school that you can get in contact with. And I don't know if Mr. Green has scholarship opportunities yet or these type of things. But again, this is where, I'm putting on my librarian hat. I'm writing information down because I'm surrounded by plugs. And this is what the youth want.
Well, for the one person in the audience who does not know what a plug is, holla at me. What is a plug, brother?
You got it. A plug typically is defined as the person that is in the know, the individual that will be able to open up the door of information that you're looking to attain, or product or service, etc.
Now, Kevin, is that guy a librarian or what?
For real, because he articulated plug in the best way ever. Because I wasn't going that way with it, so I'm gonna give you that. I'm gonna stick with the, I concur. I concur with that one.
I tell you, like he had it written down.
For real.
I'm trying to, man, that guy, he's on his game. Now we've heard all of these things, and Brandon led us to the next step that we have to take, Kevin, and that is we got to tell what we're about to do. And Brandon, if you thought that you needed a plug or wanted one, you got, man, the stuff you're about to hear. You better break out another piece of paper, brother. You better get your thumbs working or whatever you got to do, because Kevin is about to tell you what we are about to drop the bomb in New York. We are really about to step up everybody's game and take it to a whole nother level here. Because if we're gonna do this, let's do this. But let's do it right. And we had to leave New York to get to New York, but that's all right. We're here. Now, my office has been working with the Cleveland School of Cannabis, and we didn't find anybody with a curriculum as good as theirs. And if that's the case, we need to bring Cleveland to New York, and I mean New York State. We are going to do training, and yes, you're right, Brandon. The training will be free, or the first phase of it, if you wish. Um, and those who want to go to a higher level, we can talk at another moment. But first, let's get you in the door. Then we can talk about how to own the company, how to be the executive in it. Brother Green, would you be kind enough to tell what you and I, we're your firm and my office, what are we offering to New York State?
Yes, so 100%. So Brandon, to answer directly, we do provide some scholarships. We have a few different scholarships. We developed our own student loan program with no help of the federal government because we know that's not able right now. But to Senator James, and what we're so proud to announce, which was just announced today, is our 8-week cannabis curriculum cohort New York State initiative for education, for cannabis education. And what this is all about is looking at the main three heads of the industry, which is cannabis horticulture, dispensary operations, extractions, and infusions, right? So extraction, infusion is one. And those are the major three heads of the industry. So when we first take a look at dispensaries and we take a look at individuals that want to get in the industry, a lot of time the dispensary operators in themselves get a little bit of a bad name or low hand. It seems like they're the low staff individuals. Education is so key at the dispensary level because our doctors and our medical professionals are only involved in the process of cannabis in the sense of recommending a card. So once you get your recommendation, you're able to access and file for a card. Once you get your card, you're then able to go to a licensed dispensary to be able to buy cannabis. At this point, the consumer is embarking on a journey where the dispensary and the agents that are there are the ones driving them through that. Again, I said in the beginning, if we don't have an educated consumer, we don't have people that are educated to understand that, we're going to have a poor consumer experience. And if we have poor consumer experience consistently, that means it's going to be a detriment to our marketplace, right? Especially understanding that a lot of our medical patients are over 40. So they haven't either dealt with cannabis in a while, or they haven't dealt with the level of grade of this cannabis. And a lot of people have had some bad experiences with cannabis because they didn't understand what they were getting themselves into. So we want to make sure, understand there's going to be large retail operations and a large amount of those available within the boroughs in itself, more so than upstate New York. We want to make sure that individuals are equipped for that. Now, why that's important and in the sense of a career track for individuals is that this allows you to build yourself in the industry, as Brian talked about the numbers earlier, that is providing more upward mobility than any other industry. There's no one that's in the cannabis industry that we've put over 500 graduates in the industry in 5 years. There's no one in the same position today. Because the companies are growing so fast, they're looking for individuals to be able to lead them forward. And to speak to those young people, the one thing that I say is not that we want to get you in the industry. We need you in the industry. Brandon said it. You're the most innovative generation that we've ever seen. You're the most empowered generation. We need your creativity. We need your swag. Come in the industry and help evolve it to be the industry you want it to be. We're the ones sitting here are not going to be the ones that's going to take it to the next level. It's you. So that program that's what that focused on. When it comes to horticulture, that's the first end of the plant science. And when we talk about this is plant science. Brian alluded to hydroponics. And a lot of individuals will still use soil indoors. But the one thing that you have to understand in cannabis horticulture is it's not even just a plant. You're dealing with your environment constantly every single day. We have 4 seasons in New York. You have to be able to keep a consistent environment all year round. Not just that, then fight pests. Then understand what your plant needs and how to interact with it to be able to get it to do what you need. This is a living, breathing thing. And this thing is neat. And then you're thinking about a commercial scale, acres of this being grown, right? Thousands of square foot of this being grown. And cannabis is tested at millions per parts. It is tested at a higher level than our food. So there's not a lot of margins of error. You need to pretty much be perfect at what you're producing in the sense of cannabis. And then we come to what I call it's a lab. We can call it manufacturing processing. It is a lab. It is a scientific lab, and there's high-end lab protocols that are going on in that place. And just in itself, and thinking about that, you're in a chemistry lab at the end of the day. You're extracting from a flower into multiple different forms that it gets to you, that you're going to get shatter, extracts, you're going to get you're going to be able to go ahead and put that into edibles. You're going to be able to go ahead and obviously your vapor pens, all the other things that are going on with that. And when we think about the multiple different ways that extraction is helping it and then being fused into other things for dosages, the processes that are going on through that entire process, education is going to be key. And what we want to make sure now that individuals, as they're starting to make the decision, do I want to be a business owner? Do I want to move up into a corporation? What our program is to provide you the foundation so you can make educated decisions. The last thing that we want individuals to do, as Brian said, and I love that he said it, is start to just pull people together, sign up an EIN number, create a name that probably will not be compliant, because if you notice, all the big companies are this industries, is this Clover, this, that. It's not 420 friendly. It's not what it is, right? It's very strategic. Making sure now that you know information, now you can put together a strategic plan of how you take advantage of the industry. Your educational foundation in anything that you do is key to the decisions that you make next. And myself and Senator James Sanders and team is making sure that we provide that. And the reason why we're doing it for free is that we have to understand that equity plays a part. I'm a young African-American Jamaican immigrant. I have been at the front line and directly impacted by the war on drugs in itself. And I know that just years ago, I would not have been able to afford the education that I provided. So that's why we do a lot of things with our scholarships and our student loans that we underwrite ourselves. There's no other money in this. It's my two business partners that are my age as well, that have come together to make this happen. And we want to making sure that we're meeting people where they are, and we're breaking down that stigma, and we're giving them a chance to have critical dialogue around a subject that they've had to have quietly with people that they felt weren't going to continue to disenfranchise them. So we must make sure we do that part. And since myself and my business partners and our company has been blessed to be in the position that we are today, we must making sure that we go back and continue to do things that we can. Because as I've about we. And if we create something that's sustainable and we give multiple people opportunities to be able to get in the industry, the pie only grows for all of us. So I want to be able to provide as many opportunities, especially to the individuals that have been hurt most and are still dealing with the trauma within their communities due to the war on drugs. So I'm so excited for what we're launching. We'll be starting, enrollment starts as of today. We'll be doing 75 individuals, 25 per cohort. So that's 3 different cohorts into the educational track. It will be an 8-week program. We'll have live classes every week on Wednesdays at 7 to 8. And then they'll also be taking some supplemental pre-recorded classes through that time. We'll be bringing in some guest speakers on the last end, because I always believe it's key to talk with people that are running organizations to understand exactly what they're looking for. Not only if you're looking to be in the industry, but also if you're looking to position yourself as a business, an ancillary business in the industry, understand what they need so you can position yourself, and all about that strategy, right? Knowledge is key. The more you know. Is key to this process. So we're so excited. And truthfully, what we hope to get, and Brian, I think, alluded to this as well, and Brandon as well, about the co-op opportunities. You start to go ahead and build more relationships, right? 2020 allowed us to, it took away some of the ability to personally connect, right? We started to do that through Zoom. And we want to make sure that we continue to facilitate how people can connect with each other and find potential partners and resources. So as they move through this industry, they have opportunities. Because the one thing that I know, that the thing that I learned after school was networking is almost 70% of the return on investment at college. 30% is the education, but networking is key. And if you're able to, when you're finally in that position, pick up a phone and call someone and say, hey, this is what I have going on, this is the thing, that is more powerful than anything that any degree can bring. So we want to make sure that we facilitate that. So not only the education, the access, but also the networking and the relationship building that would happen through this 8 weeks we're going to provide within this program. So very excited to get it done. We're so eager to get started with this process. And we're looking forward to go ahead and seeing some of the great individuals that are going to come out of this program and, again, be the stakeholders of this industry moving forward.
Well, Brian, what networks can we, a potential graduate, and this is all speculative at this point, a potential graduate of the Cleveland School of cannabis, what networks might they be interested in that may come from a chamber of commerce, and would a chamber of commerce be interested in their networks?
So I think I'm going to take the second question first and then come back. Yes, the chamber would definitely be interested in the connections with these different associations, partly because we see this as the future of business, and with all the other businesses that are going to be able to push into it, it just makes sense from the chamber's point of view to be involved. Um, Someone who's graduating or someone who's about to graduate is going to want to get plugged in. And if we're talking about the New Jersey, New York, soon to be Connecticut coming online, you're going to look for those associations. There is already a New Jersey Cannabis Association, a New York State Cannabis Association, a New York City Cannabis Association. Then there is all of the other ones that are popping up. Two colleagues of mine that I had met at an event run a New Jersey cannabis training program for minorities. Kevin, I'd love to be able to connect you with them. Sounds like they're doing some things at a grassroots level compared to what you're doing. But I really believe that we have to make sure that the right people are leading this. So it's great to connect with like-minded people. I would say that they're going to want to get plugged in and start talking to people because it's not just about, who's in the cannabis industry. If I'm getting into shipping and logistics, I need to make relations with current shipping and logistics company because I'm going to need a mentor, not necessarily a mentor from the cannabis side. I'm going to need that too, but I'm going to be needing a mentor who's already been in the shipping industry. And now you can apply that to anything. If we're talking about dispensaries, the retail, if we're talking about the marketing companies, we're going to need to connect them. And I know that, Ms. Jeffries had used the plug term. A lot of times we'll use the social capital term also. You want to connect them with the person in the room who has the most social capital that's appropriate for them. Getting plugged in at an early age in high school or so, it has tremendous benefits later on because you're meeting the right people and you're working their network. So yes, I definitely think that, this is something that right in the beginning, as they get into these courses, you're going to want to start forming those relationships because those relationships could take a month to a year to develop.
Well, my friends, my telephone number, and I will give that, my telephone number is a 718 number, 523-3069, 523-3069. And my point person, just to show you how serious I am, is my chief of staff, Marvin Holland. So you're speaking to the top when you get there. I would be remiss if I spoke about this subject and did not give credit to the Assembly Majority Leader People Stokes and the Senator Kruger. They shepherded this. This has been their baby, and they have shepherded this into reality. Now we're into our last moments, and I'm going to give all of you a chance to make your last sales pitch on this one. Let's see who we started with you last, Brian. So we'll start with you first, and then we'll go. Brandon had the beauty of being in he ended up first. So you're last, Brian. Kevin, Kevin, I can't keep up with this, man. I tell you, somebody must have put something in my water. We'll go with you first, Kevin. I think you were last before. Then we'll go with you, Brian, and then back to Brandon. All right, I think I got it now.
That's why it's so important to know your dose, man. Know your milligrams.
Well, it's but let me tell you something, Brian. Your thing is so hot that I just was handed a letter, a message saying that a TV station, or is it a radio station, wants to speak about this one and about what we're doing. And if you had the ability, I'll speak with you on that, because we always stick with the partner that brings us to the dance. We always we love a partnership, And while these guys know my name, I want them to know your name. I want them to know what you guys are offering. So having said that, I guess we'll speak offline on that one.
Yep.
But now you're in it. You're in it, sir. Kevin, now you got to speak to me, and you got to imagine that a guy like me had his own network. I was a street corner. This is all a scenario, people. Don't believe that is true. I don't need people running, oh my God, Sanders, we got to get you legal, Sanders. No, but it's a scenario. Here's your scenario. I got my own network. I have been moving product for quite a while. Why on this planet should I stop and go to school and learn or participate anything in this, Brother Green?
I would say you need to continue the same thing that you've always done. I know that you've not run your business the same way from day one to the actual date to actually today. So you've always come and bring new ideas, new opportunities. You've always said, hey, this is what the block wants now. We need to make sure we have this. You know, I remember the days of Hayes and Sour Diesel. If that's not what you had, you know what I mean? That's just what it was, right? So you have to, you've already been evolving and changing through, and you've been educating yourself. So the one thing that we have to understand is that education is a lifelong journey. It never stops. It's always happening. You can get it from everywhere, that every walk of life. So what we're trying to provide here is we're making sure that we can streamline your evolution and make sure that you're sustainable. Because the one thing about the way that you have accessed the industry, truthfully, is an amazing way, because you've been able to create an organization without any support, without any banking, right? You've been able to set up logistics, you've been able to train staff, you've been able to recruit people, you've been able to build a customer base. You have a high-end CEO skill set. Now what we need to do is to make that sustainable, because it's all about sustainability and growth. So education is going to be key in your process. How do you innovate what you do? How do you innovate your logistics? How do you innovate the cultivars and the strains that you have available? How do you making sure that you're moving with the marketplace? How do you make sure, as our consumers become more evolved, which they are every single day? For me as an adult, and being able to interact with cannabis as a medical patient and in recreational states, I like the ability to be able to go into a place I can pull apart, walk in, be treated like value, ask the clarifying questions that I need, and leave with a receipt, and understand that there's some standard to the service that I'm embarking on. That is sustainability. What we want to do is provide you sustainability in your business. As cannabis continues to grow and continues to go into the green market, as we're moving into, as Senator James Sanders calls it, we have to understand that the consumers are moving that way too. So the expectations that your consumers have now will not be the expectation tomorrow and then moving forward. We want to making sure that you're doing this at the right way. And also because your product is everything, right? Who has the best product? Understanding that cannabis is being developed at the highest level, you must make sure that you stay on the forefront of having the best product. If you're cultivating it, if you're processing it and providing it, you must be on top of that wave. If you don't have the right cultivar, it is going to create a lack of stability and growth within your business. So education is going to be a part of every single aspect of you continuing your business and growing your business. So we want you to be successful. We also want you to be here with us. And I'm sure so does your family. So transitioning yourself, but also not just learning from us. We have a lot to learn from you. I truthfully believe that this is not just a mentorship. This is a partnership. And how can we both educate each other and have individuals like yourself that has a high level CEO knowledge of how to run an organization, bring that talent, educate a lot of people that don't know how to do that very, very well. So bring your talents, learn some things, become sustainable, and actually live the dream that you embarked on when you started this years ago.
Well, well put as usual. Brian, now you got some business types, some business people who are maybe hesitant and leery on A, going into this market, B, joining forces or partnerships with young entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs of color. What say you to these people?
So I think if we look back at this and you really try to figure this out for a second, if we could all go back to 1980, we would all bought Apple stock. No one thought it was going anywhere. That was it. It was silly. It was rainbow colored at the time. It had a bite taken out of it. Now we look at it. If I could bought 1 or 2 shares back in 1980, I'd be a millionaire. Your business right now, if you're looking to expand your business, you're looking to get into a new market. If you're thinking about how COVID has affected your business and what you're going to do because nobody comes in anymore, this is the next new big thing. We're talking about, a $26.2 billion industry only expected to grow in New York every single year thereafter. If you're worried about partnering with another person, you have to also look at who's your demographic. Who are you selling to? Do you have a relationship? When they look at you, do they see themselves? And if they don't, you need to partner more than anyone else needs to partner, because your customers need to actually think that they're being represented in their business and feel that they are. If you're worried about the stigma from the other businesses, we can play this game and we can go back, with so many different things. But in the end, who cares? If you could roll out a new item in your business and you could triple, quadruple your revenue in a year, I couldn't see why you wouldn't want to. And to me, this is strictly a business opportunity. I don't really care about which side of the fence you are. Personally, if you're going to smoke, if you're not going to smoke, that doesn't matter. From a business standpoint, if you miss out on this, not only are you going to miss out on a ton of money in the next few years, I can almost predict that your business is going to be dwarfed because these people who go into this, they're going to be expanding in the next few years. They're not going to stay only in the cannabis industry. They're going to have the capital to go into other industries and own other things. So I kind of feel that this is a get in this now as soon as possible or forever be on the outside.
Well, Brandon, you're working with youth that seemingly are forever on the outside. And from what I'm hearing, there's a chance for them to be on the inside. What are the pitfalls? What are the things? And what do you think we should do?
I think that we need to stress 3 core categories: urgency, agency, and legally. From urgency, we have to understand that time is of the essence. Mr. Licata said it, Mr. Green echoed it. There's a 3-year time period where if you're not in this, you're already behind. And you may not even get a chance to get back into this fully. So to that end, you can even reference, I know that Brian shared about Apple, I would share about websites. In the 90s, that was the thing. And there were people that made millions. Mark Cuban was able to start the Dallas Mavericks off of the money that he had through website design. This is no different. We have to, release those that are on the fence and they're not sure about it because they're hearing marijuana and cannabis and they're so used to preconceived notions. You're going to be lacking in these streets if you turn around and you don't get involved in this. Agency, you now have the power to be able to own your own business in a new type of framework. Mr. Green is there teaching, educating, and providing the necessary resources for them so they can turn around and not have to punch in and punch out, or they can turn around and get particular capital resources that can help them have the mentorship opportunities that was just spoken about. And legally. Now, this is the one that is the most important because Queens defenders have fought for the rights for so many times and for such a long amount of time representing and making sure that everybody can have a right for their own rights. For all intents and purposes, and with the powers of your end senator, as well as many congressmen and council, we won. We got this opportunity now. So it is important to be able to use the rights that we now took back and make sure that you get a peace of mind for your well-being and a piece of the American pie.
Well, it is no question that this did not fall from the sky or somebody one day decided to give folk something. No, these were hard-fought battles that shaped a policy that we are speaking about today. This is not something, this is not the system doing this or that. This is your efforts in an organized fashion have produced these political changes and have opened a window of possibility. But let me teach you something. This one is for you, Brian. The let's see if I can do this. The opportunity of a lifetime must be seized in the lifetime of the opportunity. The opportunity of a lifetime must be seized in the lifetime of the opportunity. And that is what we're speaking about, where this one, yes, this window is cracked. It is not thrown open. The door is not wide. You're going to have to just muscle your way in here and take a seat. Now, Kevin has just went out of his way to put a seat for you, but he said that he's doing this 3 times in the year, and each class will only have 25 people. Now, on one hand, that's a lot, but until you think that we're sharing it with the entire state. So that means the hungry person will get in there. My phone should be ringing now. There must be no shame in your game if you're going for this stuff. If you're going to do this, you are going to have to move in a very responsible and directed way. You're going to have to go for it. Because when those seats are filled, you please don't give me a sad story. I'm gonna say, my friend, you had as much chance as anybody else. So get in there so you don't have to be looking at your friends and saying, well, I could have gone legit, but instead I got busted. Because I got news for you, Brother Brandon. What's not being mentioned in all of this law stuff is what will happen to people outside of this market if they still choose to sell outside of this market. Sooner or later, there will be a crackdown. Look at the lottery. When the state went into the business of the lottery, anybody who does an illegal lottery goes to jail.
Even with prohibition.
Yes, I mean, so under those conditions, my friends, it may be a wise thing to do to get the information and to get out of all kinds of stuff that you shouldn't be in and move into some things that you should. Now, I really am grateful to my guests today. As I started, I will say it again. These are the best people that money can't buy. That they are really interested in trying to change the world around them. They are really trying to say, look, you can do well and do good. You can get out there and make the world the place that we need it to be. Make your community the place you want it to be. And I really hope that you come from this community, remember this community, and give back to this community. That's part of what I'm looking for. I want people who are going to grab a football team and play and pay for them, and grab some young people who need to go to school, and grab all kinds of folk that everybody says, oh, the community should have. Okay, make it your business to create that. Other people have made it their business to open the door for you and holding it so you can get to your seat after you graduate and start making those monies that you are. I hope that you remember the people whose shoulders that you climbed up on to get where you're going. Now, I think, again, my guest has been very interesting, and we're going to do a lot of work together. My name is State Senator James Sanders Jr. My telephone number, again, hey, I'm trying for you, is a 718 number, 523-3069. And I want you to call Marvin Holland and say, hey, I'm here for my seat. I only need one. I don't need all 25. I just need one. And make sure you get yours. So I thank my guests. And if anybody needed to be clear, this was a place that they can be on, because today we have spoken, and we have spoken about being clear on the issue of cannabis / marijuana, or whatever we're calling it this week. And you've been at my show, Let's Be Clear, with State Senator James Sanders Jr. God bless you all. Take care all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator.